As I record this, it's the day before WoW is essentially going to change forever, and in many ways. Add-ons are slightly dying, classes are being made a bit easier, and the Eastern Kingdoms that we've known for 20 years is literally changing in its shape. And even now, Blizzard are pushing some unexpected updates to pre-patch and beta, so I've got a lot of actually pretty good news, some restrictions being eased up. But despite that, people are now once again looking further into the future, and it's Blizzard's fault. The reason why is they've kinda just told us what spec ideas they're working on next. Devourer Demon Hunter drops this week with pre-patch, and that means Blizzard are probably starting to work on whatever the hell the next spec is going to be. The obvious question is which one, and as helpful as ever, Blizzard have sent out a survey with a specific list of things to pick from. First up, we've the usual suspects that Blizzard actually played around with during Season of Discovery. There's Tank Shaman, Tank Rogue, Tank Warlock, and even a time-based healing mage. All kinda crazy, but all ideas proven to work. But honestly, it's the other options that are way more out there, so get a load of these. The first on the list is particularly mad. It's a healing hunter. So imagine a hunter running around the place, healing their friends not by magic, but by, giving them bandages, using their pet to deliver medicines like some sort of weird combat medic. It's kind of wild, but honestly, yeah, there's something neat there in and around the survival hunter. Seems cool. I mean, casting bandages in melee range is almost as if first aid was never removed from the game. You may not know, but that was a mechanic. There's other gameplay ideas like throwing healing potions the way that Survival throws their various Molotov cocktails, so it could work. But the real question is whether it would excite people, whether it would be hype, and something tells me that a bandage hunter may not be the biggest draw. Now, the consensus, right, and this is relevant context, is that the Augmentation Evoker was a little bit of a failed experiment. Essentially, Blizzard tried to do support as a full spec, but it didn't really work out and it really damaged the meta for a period of time. But all the same, it's not stopped Blizzard from adding other support specs into the list. We've got a support priest, which is basically holy DPS that also buffs its allies, basically using the classic inner fire. There's also a support paladin, and that's kinda neat because paladin used to be a buff bot. They had all their different blessings, and basically this is a spec that would be that, but, you know, with actual gameplay. Which is honestly kind of wild because the Lightsmith hero talent sort of does this stuff already, so I think making it a full spec could be a little tough. But the good news is that I think with Augmentation Evoker under their belt, Blizzard could probably do a new support spec in a way that isn't a total disaster. That said, those things are not particularly exciting. Now, there are 3 new ranged options. There's a Chi launching monk, a Holy Fire DPS priest, and a ranged DK that is full-on Lich. And of those, I think Lich Death Knight is probably the coolest. I mean, throwing out Unholy and Frost spells, summoning ghosts instead of ghouls, having your own personal phylactery. That stuff instantly passes the vibe check. It feels Death Knight, it feels undead, feels necromantic, and that is all very much core Warcraft. If I had only one vote, I'd probably throw it onto the Lich Death Knight. But as amazing as it sounds, also, let's be real, Shamans have been denied a tank spec since the game first launched, so it probably is their turn, and I think the game does need more tanks anyway, though it does beg a question. We can probably have more than one new spec in the game, right? But that also begs another question. I mean, the Last Titan is the thing that's coming up next. Often in a new expansion, we'll get a new class, but so far we've only talked about specs. And that's actually got me thinking. You see, Blizzard likes to introduce one thing at a time, mostly so the game doesn't, explode. And for the Last Titan, the new thing they should put in is probably a full new class. Now, back in the day, we used to get a new class every second expansion. We had DKs in Wrath, Monks in Mop, and Demon Hunters in Legion. Then we had a 3-expansion gap, BFA and Shadowlands, before Evoker finally landed with Dragonflight. The Last Titan would be 3 expansions after the Evoker, and I think doing a new class is just too good of a thing for a big hype expansion for Blizz to ignore. And because of this, I wouldn't blame you for thinking, wow, what, these specs wouldn't arrive until like 2030 or something like that? I would actually say no, not necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard decides to sprinkle in the odd new spec during the patch cycle of expansions. Maybe one in this and one in the Last Titan, with the Last Titan also having a new class. I know that does sound pretty aggressive, but WoW's team has been pretty substantially beefed up as time has went on, and I think they're realizing that as they do live service for this game, one of the things that is truly a new draw for people is new classes and new specs. But as fun as all that is to think about, there's a hell of a lot going on in the game right now and a lot coming, so let's talk about the pre-patch. Prepatch is right on top of us, and midnight is not much further away. And as usual, Blizzard are shipping changes right up to the wire. It is so close. So here's what you need to know about what's changed. First off, we've got Mythic Plus changes. It's no secret that Blizzard have tried to get people into Mythic Plus. They've made it easier and more simple over the years, but one major problem does remain. And that is getting people to actually tank the damn things. Everyone knows that staying alive as a tank has never really been the hard part. The hard bit is leading the group and routing through the dungeon, because you do end up needing to do a bunch of research. It's that classic problem. How do you know before you've done the thing, but you don't feel like you can do the thing because you don't know? And that's what Blizzard wants to solve with Lindormi's Guidance. It's a new affix, but before you panic, don't worry, it's a positive one. It's active in +2s through to +5s, and Lindormi will mark certain targets, highlighting them and debuffing them. And what this does is it paints a route through the dungeon, where if you kill all the debuffed enemies, you'll hit 100%, you'll save a bunch of time, and that'll basically be it. You'll be grand. Obviously, at the higher keys, it won't be there, but you'll still be able to just default to the practiced route from this affix, or go and try something a bit more optimal. I think the genius here is it means that beginner players are going to have the routing done for them. That means they can easily get used to the dungeon, and the debuff means that the route they're practicing will be the best one. But once that debuff is gone, well, you just get to play without the training wheels, and maybe if you have some special tactics, that's when you can deploy them. I think this is great, and just doing the Blizzard route is probably going to be fine for most groups, and now that tanks aren't thrown into the deep end, well, maybe we can expect there to be more tanks in Midnight. Now, on top of that, there's another new section of the Adventure Guide. This is a shocking thing, but it actually explains keystones and affixes. It, only took them 10 years to put something in the game that explains that, but hey, as they say, the second best time to plant a tree is now. And overall, I think I'm pretty impressed with Blizzard for finally solving this problem. It's one of those things where their solution is so elegant, I'm almost kicking myself for not thinking about it earlier. So GG. That being said, where I'm a bit less impressed is the bugs. Because right now, there are major fears that Prepatch will literally break Koresh. Just break the zone. And that's because in PTR, the Rishi wraps are just not working, like whatsoever. You can't do any Koresh content that needs them, and that even includes killing Dimensius, because without the cloak effect, Dimensius just kills you. Plus, on top of all that, we've got an incoming stat squish. Do you know exactly what that tends to mean? It will probably mean that for a while, old raids will be a nightmare, and early reports certainly do suggest that. Even geared level 80s are reporting that Shadowlands and Dragonflight raids now take ages to clear. Like always, Blizzard will get around to fixing this, but Prepatch is likely going to be more than a little broken at launch. Thankfully though, the worst break comes with the expansion itself, and the thing that'll break is actually your brain. Specifically, the 20 years of shape recognition you have for the Eastern Kingdoms being destroyed. That's because we've got a new Eastern Kingdoms map, and it's getting an interesting reception online. Take a look at this. This is Zalaman. It's always been there, except that, to our eyes, it obviously looks wrong. I mean, it is completely correct, it's just going to take a little bit of time to get used to. And it's kind of interesting, through this and the next expansion, which will be doing a bunch of revamps to Northrend, well, we'll have to get used to continents taking a slightly different shape in-game. Okay, with that said, we gotta move on to housing, where there is fantastic news. Blizzard have stacks of housing changes, and thanks to some rather pointed feedback, they've essentially gone through a huge list of decor, and they have drastically reduced the placement costs on beta. That means that once the expansion launches, you'll be able to throw down, as an example, 3 times as many rugs and platforms, and almost twice as many bookcases. And from everything I can see, that team are extremely active with feedback, so much so that Holly told PC Gamer that they're basically suffering from success. That housing is so well loved that they are utterly swamped with requests for minor improvements. Things like this feature, which will be absolutely screaming in the heads of anyone who has used 3D software, where we want our little movement and rotation tools to, be appropriately colored, so we can, pick the right direction at a glance. Hopefully that'll be in soon. Now, speaking of PC Gamer, They also quietly revealed housing's immediate future, and it's pretty exciting. It all happened in a series of interviews where they just got some juicy info. So here's what's coming. Soon after the expansion launches, we're going to get co-owning and decorating. We'll get interacting with objects like glasses, books, and chest sets, bigger exteriors for our houses, elf exteriors, and skybox rooms. We're also going to get house renown levels going up as well, and they'll continue to rise by 5 to 10 for every major patch. That's what's coming soon, but they did talk about other features as well. So here's what they are. Bigger exterior budgets, more exterior lighting, mounts and pets roaming around houses, and indoor snow items, plus Hearthstone-like interaction. Basically, what they mean by that is that, say, you could click a cauldron, and when you click the cauldron, basically it would bubble up. A little bit like how there is interactivity in the Hearthstone game boards. Now, these are not an exhaustive list, but it is nice to get confirmation here. If that all feels a little thin to you, don't worry, it's not an exhaustive list, and we actually know we're going to be getting a housing-specific roadmap very soon. But apparently until then, this is what we know, and at least I'll say it's all good stuff. But I can't leave you without a tease, because there are a few features that are basically on their list, but they're a little bit on the fence as to whether they'll show up, and it's often for technical reasons. Those are basements, which are sadly technically impossible for now, but come on, basements would be absolutely amazing. Also, communal spaces for events and more varied neighborhoods. Clearly, I think they're giving this feature everything that they've got, and I'm really excited to see their plans. They do have an entire team dedicated to this, and they've always said it's not just a midnight feature, it's one that they'll be plowing forward with every expansion. So by the time Last Titan happens, I wouldn't be surprised if we'll be hanging out in our guild hall with some sort of communal event area where we can spawn objects and, I don't know, get up to all sorts of degeneracy. Anyway, that's it for this week's big news, at least for today. A Prepatch will bring plenty to talk about, and if you want to know what to expect when you log in tomorrow, check out our big breakdown video of all the changes right here next.